Tell me when. Oh, I get it out. Well, look who the wind blew in. Was it windy enough yesterday for you and tonight? And I think they're talking about snow. This is April. So welcome to our monthly gathering. Just as a reminder, if you didn't hear me before, we are collecting dues at our monthly meetings for the next couple of 3 months. And we'll have some more information on that as we proceed. As always, I'll start with a little bit of trivia. April, the month of winds, obviously, but it's Jazz Appreciation Month. I like it. National Volunteer Month, so we will be probably soliciting volunteers at some point from this group. And also Distracted Driver Awareness Month. And sometimes I think I have seen some of those in our community. No, not here. Okay. We'll move on to our normal list. We have financial report, membership, computer club matters, training, community matters, and our topic of the day. And that's in black. I printed it out in white. You can't see it, but you'll see our speaker shortly. The financial report shows that we are now beginning to collect some dues, so our cash kitty is going up a little bit. We're solvent, and we have a year-to-date contribution to Grafton Food Pantry of $379, and that was 2 pretty weak months in January and February, but we came back last month. This month, I think we'll do pretty good. This is just a thumbnail sketch of club matters. Again, we're moving your cheese in May. We're meeting on the 3rd month due to a theater presentation and a band presentation. So make note of the fact that May will be on the 19th, and we'll expect you all here. Our membership, as of last Wednesday, whoops, there we go, is 1650 and growing. We all expect you to solicit all your neighbors to join us because John Sterling wants us to get to 2,000 members. Okay, the other announcements are with some of you, you may be returning snowbirds. I've noticed a few snowbirds showing up in my neighborhood, and I've asked them if they received their communications, and some did, and some didn't. So if you didn't receive your normal communications, let us know, and we'll see if we can investigate that. And rest assured, next month we are talking about backup, and whether that's in the cloud or in other forms, that's the topic. And now I'll introduce Jim Nelson to talk about one of your loves, coffee.
Coffee? Well, it is volunteer month, and I'm here to ask for your assistance. The group you see back here are the people who have been providing our treats for the last several years. I couldn't tell you how many, but more specifically, our coffee guy has had some serious injury repair, and he's not going to be able to perform that coffee service for many months to come. So I would welcome 2 people, preferably, to volunteer to make the coffee for us at our monthly meetings and to just, I guess, provide that service that Rick has been doing for almost 4 years, all by himself. So if you see me after the meeting, I would appreciate it. I'll be happy to describe what it entails. Rick said he would help train. I would also do that because I did it for about 3 years before that. And before that, Bill Zaletti, who was then our president, used to do it. So it's been around the block, and it isn't that difficult, that it just needs attention so that it gets done. So that's my fears. And the other thing I think Dave mentioned is if you're not getting our communications, please let us know, and we'll do our best to get that cleared up. So if there are any questions, I'll be here after the meeting and be happy to talk with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. And one last thing, if you just feel like volunteering to help distribute the pastries that we have each month, we're going to be potentially light a couple of people next month due to surgeries or being out of town or things like that. So if you'd like to maybe provide that kind of service once in a while, feel free to see Judy, and we can work. You can work your magic by laying out the donuts. As I mentioned, our May meeting is May 19th, and in June, we're going to go back to the second Saturday, June 9th. Training. Ralph, would you like to come up?
Yeah. Well, first of all, before I talk about the classes, I'd like to have a show of hands. How many people look forward to getting the weekly announcement on the upcoming classes? Well, we got a little problem this week. Jim, that hasn't been corrected. It hasn't on North Star?
No, it's still down.
Still down. Yeah, North Star's down, so that's why you haven't received it. And we got 2 classes coming up next week. One of them on buying and selling on eBay, and the other one on Android phones. So you won't, most likely, you're not going to get another announcement on that. But we look forward to you remembering. I know for me that's a problem, but hopefully you'll make a notation that you'd like to come to either one of those classes. Then by the following week, we ought to be able to get it out to tell you about the iPhone basics and the Android phone classes coming up at the end of the month. And I do want to mention one other thing. I'm working on getting May and June classes, and we've got several of them. But we have a class coming up the first weekend, actually it's the 9th of May, and it's a comparison of iPhones and Android phones. And it's going to be put on by a couple people from T-Mobile. So you will not really receive the notice on that very quickly. And just want you to think about it. If you're thinking about getting a smartphone, they're going to do a comparison of the two. So that might be an interesting class for someone that's in the process of thinking about a smartphone. The classes have been going well. We do need additional teachers. Kind of slow. Some of the teachers are getting tired, and we'd like to get some new blood in there. So you can see me, or if they're in the computer lab and you're interested maybe in talking about teaching a class, mention to one of the monitors and they'll get the information to me, and I'll get a hold of you and we'll talk about what you're interested in teaching. But we do need some additional teachers. So think about it. Everybody knows something about something. So thank you.
Thanks, Ralph. Well, as I've mentioned before, our renewal is again this year $5, and you should take advantage of it. July 3rd or 4th, isn't that? That's when the trail of tears occurs over in our lab. Oh, I missed the renewal. Can I renew at $5? No, it's $25. So make sure you get your renewal processed between now and June 30th. We take cash or check. Kisses are available. Now we'll talk about a little bit about the community activities. May 16th, there's going to be a participation party, and it's essentially recognizing all the volunteers in the community and all the various clubs that they are representing, and or other committees that people work on all the There's an announcement in the last lifestyle. I'm sure there will be one in the newest lifestyle when it comes up. Another community activity is that we all hear about ID fraud and scams. The community is having a presentation in the Birch Room, 1 p.m., April 16th, which is again a conflict with some of these other things, but you can pick and choose where you want to go with your attendance. The board meeting this month is the 25th, and it's at 6 p.m. Oftentimes they have them in the morning, but this time it's at 6 p.m. here in Brindle Hall on the 25th. So without further ado, I want to point out that we as a community are a significant financial block to support District 158. I'm sure you're all aware of the fact that our property taxes support schools. You may have some grandchildren in that school system, and therefore I thought it might be value to find out how the school system is improving their integration of technology into the classroom and into the school system. For that reason, I reached out and was able to contact Dr. Chris Bedinsky, and he will present the integration of tech into the classroom. He's the Director of Information Technology at the Huntley Community School District 158. Welcome, Chris. By the way, he's also a salesman. He convinced his parents to move to the community.
I did. Well, thank you very much for having me. So when I got in touch with Dave, oh man, it was a handful of months ago to start talking about this. We were talking about what could we share about the school district in terms of technology and what we're doing with technology to impact the schools and the learning and those things that our students are facing in the world around them. So that's what I'm going to share today. A little bit about me. Again, my name is Chris Budzinski. I'm the Director of Information Technology in a local school district. I do live here in Huntley with my wife, Tiffany, and my two sons, one of whom came with me today. I say that because these guys are my cheerleaders. They're really the reason that I do what I do, not only for my kids, but the other 10,000 students in our school district as well. So Colton came with me today, and he actually promised that if anybody has questions afterwards about how students are using technology, he might be able to field a few questions. He's shy, so he may prefer a one-on-one question rather than up here in front of the group. I'll take the up here in front of the group questions. And as was mentioned, I did actually convince my parents to move here to Sun City. Back in November, they moved to the community, and so far, they're loving it. And I said I wouldn't tell them this, but if there's a community that has a computer club like this, that's the right place to be. That's just my opinion. So that's us. That's actually all 6 of us. We did pile into a minivan this past summer and drove to Niagara Falls. So now you know who you're talking to. That's all 6 of us on our way. These are my 2 boys, and like I said, these are kind of the light and the reason that I do what I do. They are my sounding board for the things that I do in the school district. I'll talk to my kids. Colton's 8 years old. I should say 9 because in about a week and a half he'll be 9. Ryder, the other one with the big cheesy smile, he's 6. He's in kindergarten. So I'm going to talk to you about these guys. I'll bring them back over the next few slides and tell you a little bit about them and things that they're doing in their classroom and how we're able to affect change in the way they do their learning. So we'll see a little bit more about them in just a little bit. So a little bit about my background. I grew up in a small farm town called Leland. It's about an hour southwest of here. So that's where I'm from. I studied economics, business administration, organizational leadership. Note that I've never actually studied technology, which is weird to say, having never formally studied technology, but I'm the technology director in a large school district. What I know in technology I've learned through reading and through trying things. That's why we encourage a lot of our students to learn the same way. I worked in Carpentersville School District 300 for about 10 years. About 5 years ago, I moved to the Huntley School District as the tech director. A little bit about the Huntley School District. We have just shy of 10,000 students. We use 10,000 as a nice round number, but officially it's 9,670 as of yesterday afternoon. 8 schools spread around the community, plus 1 early childhood education center, which is a 3 through 5-year-old preschool. So we have that in the community as well. As you know, I'm sure that we serve Huntley, Lincoln Hills, Algonquin, and some of the other surrounding communities. And a little bit of trivia, in case you didn't know, we are in fact, as a school district, the 2nd largest employer in all of McHenry County, 2nd behind only Centegra. So that's just a little bit about us as a district. I'm sure you'll also know, as is the case with Sun City, we were known for our rapid growth during the 2000s. We were one of the few school districts that saw that rapid growth. We were adding at any point in time between 700 and 1,000 students a year. And that's largely unheard of in the state of Illinois. We still today see pretty significant growth in our schools, not as much as it once was, but we're still growing by about 200 students a year. So our numbers are still going up. We anticipate our student population to level off a little bit as the market would dictate, and we'll hover right around that 10,000 student number for the next several years. We are regularly recognized for the innovative things that we're doing in our schools, and I'll share a number of those with you today. And some of the things that we're doing differently in our schools to help our students kind of come along and think differently about how they're learning. And another little bit of tidbit of trivia, we are among the lowest per pupil spending rate districts anywhere in Northern Illinois. I'll tell you what that means. School districts often measure their financial ability on how much money is spent per student per year. In Huntley 158, we spend about $10,000 per student per year. The state average is about $12,400. So we're about $2,400 less than the state average in per student spend. So when we get money in from the community from those taxes and all those sorts of things, we do everything we can to spend responsibly, spend smartly, get the most out of those dollars as we can. So we're very proud of that as a district. And I think you'll see in the programs that we offer our students, the technology, the innovation that we offer our students, we're able to offer without really surpassing what we would consider to be a normal spend per student. There's a number of other districts around that are at that state average spend per student and well above. So we're very proud of the fact that we're well under the state average in terms of how much is spent per student. And I think you'll see how we're able to really stretch those dollars in our classrooms. So just a little bit about our vision. We, along with our community, inspired to have everyone become a lifelong self-directed learner, which technology certainly impacts a great deal, to be active participants in the ever-changing world, and to have the confidence to take risks and fail forward. So you're probably thinking, what does fail forward mean? For us, that means try things, make mistakes, learn from them, and move on. We can't become better at what we do if we don't struggle along the way and learn from our mistakes. So we encourage our staff to do that. We encourage our students to do the same. To develop 21st century thinkers equipped with the skills of critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, communication, and collaboration. We actually reach out on a regular basis to the business community here in Huntley and the surrounding area. We talk to them about, what do you want students coming into the workforce to be able to do? And you know what they don't tell us? They don't tell us, we want students to be good at math or reading or things like that. They want students to come to the workplace with these skills. It's creativity, it's the ability to effectively communicate, to work together as a team. It's those soft skills that the business community wants. A lot of times they can train people who are trainable, who are willing to learn. They can learn everything they would need to know to effectively do the technical part of a job. But they want students to come into the workforce with these sorts of skills. So we want them to leave our district with these sorts of skills well intact. And then be champions for their own personal growth and development. And we want students to be thinking about, how can I be a better individual, professionally speaking, educationally speaking, those sorts of things. Our motto is very simple: all students always. I'll talk about Colton and Ryder as my kids. But I would talk just the same about the other 10,000 students in our district. It doesn't matter to us what your particular story is. We want to make education better for you. And we think that technology has a great impact on being able to do that. So why we think differently? There's a number of things that change in our world. And we think that if we're not keeping up with those changes, then we're going to be left behind. So I'm going to share just a quick example. I hope you find the humor in this. We get a good kick out of this video in our office on a regular
A new tourist destination in Auburn Hills, Michigan is showing visitors the difficulties life held for Americans in the past. Blockbuster Video aims to transport visitors to a time before the internet. It's an historically authentic recreation of a video store, a specialty shop where customers exchanged money for the short-term use of videos in an archaic system called renting.
The tour is amazing. It's like stepping into a time machine. It's hard to believe that people live this way.
A historical research team spent 3 years making sure every last detail was accurate, from the signs used to promote the store's merchandise to the costumes worn by the store's employees, historical performers who make history come alive for tour groups twice an hour.
My character is based on an actual Blockbuster employee named Jerome, who worked there from May of 1999 to June 2000. My main responsibilities are to man the cash register and to put the movies from the return slot back onto the shelves.
I am a Blockbuster customer named Kathy. 2 times a week, I travel 6 miles to rent and return videos. Oh, look, we're in the comedy section. What's so poignant about this time is the uncertainty. When you get to the Blockbuster, are they going to have your video? Did someone else rent it? Is there going to be a line? Are the alarms going to sound when you walk out the front door? It was very difficult for the people that lived during this era.
Actors say their job is to create a historically authentic experience.
Yes, we have it, but our only copy is currently checked out.
After the organized tour, visitors are allowed to move around the store, exploring the so-called living museum.
It's really amazing that people had to go through so much just to get a movie.
Blockbuster joins a growing number of historical tourism sites, including Buffalo, New York's recreation of Virgin Records Music Store and Iowa City's Borders Bookstore Museum.
The one we wanted, or those sorts of things. Well, Netflix completely changed the way video rental worked. Now, if you think about what Netflix did, a lot of times you think about Netflix as their streaming service. They bring the videos right to your house, but Netflix actually started off by sending DVDs through the mail to you. So you would go to the internet, you would say, these are the DVDs I want, and they would put them in an envelope and they'd send them to you. You never had to drive to Blockbuster. You could keep those videos as long as you wanted and send them back, then they'd send you more. They completely reinvented the way video rental worked. Just a couple other logos showing up here. Amazon did the same still in the process of doing the same for retail in general. What can't you buy on Amazon these days? Uber completely reinvents the idea of going to a metropolitan area or even a suburban area like this and hailing a taxi. You can do that from your phone. And by the way, it's cheaper than a taxi in most cases. Stitch Fix, I just threw up here. If you haven't heard of Stitch Fix, they are a clothing company where my wife and I signed up for this. We go on, we tell them a little bit about ourselves, what our style is. They actually send us clothes. If we don't like them, we send them back. So, I mean, these companies are completely changing the way that we operate in things that we would consider to be normal everyday life. So what are we doing differently? About 6 years ago, we started off by giving each one of our students a laptop computer. And yes, we actually give laptop computers to kindergarten students as well, which seems strange. But for me, that's one of our primary target audiences because we want to have them grow up being used to having technology and learning the proper ways to use technology along the way. We view these laptops as a tool for students to enhance their learning, not as a replacement for teachers, or anything like that, but if a student has a curiosity, they can go to their tool, their resource, and they can research on their own. We don't have to rely entirely on the teacher being the one sole individual to share knowledge anymore. We can give students access to really an infinite amount of knowledge through the internet and through the use of these tools. What's interesting about our one-to-one program and giving us a laptop to each student is across the state of Illinois, we're actually the single largest one-to-one K-12 deployment anywhere in the state of Illinois. That said, we're the 25th largest district in the state, so that means that there are no districts larger than us that are giving a device like this to every single student in the district. And that's something that we're very proud of. It goes back to that all students always motto. It doesn't matter to us, your story, your background. We're going to treat you equally. We're going to give you a device, and we're going to have you use that device to help leverage your learning. About that same time, about 6 years ago in our high school, just next door here, we started what we call a blended learning program. Because we started to have technology in the hands of students, we were able to find ways that we could use that technology to change the way we think about classes. So let me explain a little bit about the blended learning program and what it means to be a student in this program. In a blended learning class, what happens is you normally think of school Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 3 o'clock, roughly those hours. In a blended class, your class may only meet 2 days a week in person. And then 3 days a week, you're kind of on your own to self-direct your own learning. So you can spend that time supplementing areas that you need additional help, whether it's that class or another one. So it really creates this idea of students having the flexibility in their schedule to say, I have a blended class. For me, it would be a science class, as an example. Maybe I don't need as much help with science, but I'm struggling in my English class. I could take that extra time and focus more on English instead of science. If science comes easily to me, I could spend more time on another subject that maybe I need to work a little bit more on. So we're finding ways to integrate flexibility into student schedules so that they have control over really where they need the help. And I'll get a little bit more into an even newer program towards the end of my slides about what's the next step in that. So that's blended learning. What's interesting about blended learning, if you think back about 5 or 6 years ago, when we started this program with about 100 students, and it was, I want to say, about 4 teachers that started. Over the course of those 5 years, we have grown this program, and today there are about 2,200 students in our high school that take at least one blended learning class. So the high school over here has 3,000 students, and 2,200 of them are taking at least one blended class. There are a number of students who take 2, 3, 4, and sometimes 5 or more blended classes. So if you think about the schedule flexibility that these students have, there are students that quite literally could have multiple hours during the school day where they're able to focus on topics that they want to focus on to continue their learning, to really propel their learning to the next steps in those primary key focus areas. If you look at the high school, if you have the opportunity to go to the high school or see the high school during the school day, it has the look and feel of a community college. There's students coming and going in and out of the building all day because as part of their flexibility, if they're getting good enough grades, those sorts of things, they can actually leave campus. Now, granted, they can't go terribly far because they've got to be back for their other classes. So you can't just skip out on a whole school day, but you know, if you want to run to the library, run to Starbucks, run to wherever you might need to run, the students actually have the flexibility to do that as well. So we're creating that as an opportunity for our students. Also, to kind of leave the high school a little bit, we have systems in place, technology-based systems in place where for literacy and math, we have resources that will actively learn about each student. Now this sounds a little bit strange. Why would you want a computer system to actively learn about each student? Well, if you think about Colton here, 9 years old, he's in 3rd grade. He can actually log into a literacy system where he can practice his reading and those sorts of things. And the system will learn his preferences for reading. It will learn about the areas where he struggles with his reading. And it will fine tune his learning in the content that's presented to him to really focus on those areas where he needs help. In our middle schools, if you log into our math resources, if you think about back in the day when I had math homework, I would just have worksheets full of problems to solve, and I would just solve them because that's what I was supposed to do. Now those worksheets have been digitized and made personal for each student. So the computer system will actually learn what areas of the math content a student has figured out, what areas they need to work on more, and it will assign homework specific to the areas that they actually need help in. So no longer do they have to spend an hour every night filling out a worksheet full of math problems, when in fact they could spend just 10 or 15 minutes focusing very narrowly on those areas that they need help. So we're able to really recapture time in the student's life and really focus that learning. And we have opportunities for that across all grade levels, all subject areas. Kindergarten, first and second grade, my other son who wanted to sleep in this morning, they have digital portfolios. If you think about Ryder, he's 6, he's just learning to read. So he's in kindergarten and figuring out the fact that he knows how to read, he's learning how to read. He has ways on his device, on his laptop, where he can actually record himself reading. And you know what happens? I get an alert on my phone when I'm at work or in a meeting or wherever I happen to be. I get an alert that says, hey, Ryder just recorded a new video, and it's a video of him reading, and I can actually see his progress over time. So if I log into that app on my phone, I can go back to the video that he recorded in the first couple of weeks of school, and I can compare that to the video that he recorded this week. And I can see, as a parent, I can see his growth in reading. And so can all of our other parents. They can see the progress that their own kids are making with these tools. So that's just a couple examples of how our technology-based systems are really leveraging the benefits for the students and making a better experience for the students, that's more individualized, more personalized for them. So a little bit about both technology and teacher-based interventions. I'll go back to Ryder for just a second. We found out very early in kindergarten that Ryder was having a problem with reading. Personally, I think it was he wasn't trying hard enough. He found out very early on that it was easier to say, no, I can't do it, and the teachers aren't going to push it. Well, once we realized that he'll hate me for saying this, but he was lazy and he didn't want to do the reading. Once we got past that, he loved reading. But the way we got past that was through some of these interventions. We actually had him go to a separate area of the school for about 30 minutes twice a week where he could focus on reading. And as it turns out, it was entirely a confidence thing. He didn't have the confidence to read the words on the page because he was afraid he was going to get them wrong. So we have these response to intervention programs that are purpose-built to have the students identify what those issues are that they struggle with, to develop methodologies to get past them so that they don't fall behind the learning curve as all the other students are progressing. I couldn't even think of a situation where Ryder would fall so far behind in reading just because he was afraid to say the words out loud because he was afraid he was going to get them wrong. That's not a good system to be operating in. So if we can keep him up with that learning curve with the rest of the students in his class via technology, then he has every opportunity then to excel along with all the other students in his class. So if he doesn't fall behind the curve in terms of reading, he's not going to be behind the curve in first grade or in second grade or as he progresses through the system. So as soon as we identify a student who is maybe lagging behind a little bit, we have certain interventions that we can subscribe and prescribe to students to have them catch up. And we have that across all grade levels. We also have across all grade levels the idea that students have a voice in how they show what they're learning. When I was in school, the only choice for output was to write a paper about things. And that was the case for a long, long time. I remember back to my junior year in high school, and it's the first time we did a big, large-scale research project, and my output was a written paper. Well, now, in a lot of cases, we'll give students the opportunity to have a choice in how they present their output. I wrote a paper and turned it in. We'll have students that would do that same research project today and record a documentary about the student. What better way to show that you've learned something than to create a video to teach somebody else? Because you can't teach somebody else something that which you don't already know. And so to really teach somebody else something through your output will show a much higher grasp of the concept. So we give students a lot of those sorts of opportunities as well. So to talk a little bit about the specific grade level bands, if you think about being a kindergarten through 12th grade district, we have a wide range of age students in our district. So in our elementary programs, we have a lot of STEM learning happening, STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math. There's a big push for STEM learning in education. We a lot of times have an addition onto this, and we'll call it STEAM learning, because we'll add art into this as well. And because the idea of art and fine arts is also very important to us as a district. So if you think about our elementary classrooms, they have robotics labs that they're learning. Our elementary students are learning to program computers in kindergarten. So we're actually exposing students to these modern technologies at a much younger age, so that they're able to grow up being familiar with those as concepts. There's programming languages that are specifically developed for elementary age students. So it's almost cartoon-like. It's fun for the students to be able to learn computer programming. Even if they don't want to grow up to be computer programmers, it teaches them logic in order and process to things. You can't complete step 4 of a process if you haven't completed step 3 first. And these computer languages will help teach them that and to really solidify that in their minds. So we really try to keep a focus on what we can do, what we can integrate into those classrooms to really get at these science and technology areas. We have, like I mentioned, robotics labs. We have a lot of project-based learning in our classrooms, where our students will be faced with a question or a problem in the world, where sometimes a made-up problem, but a problem nonetheless. And they'll have to design and engineer and actually build a solution for that problem in their classroom. So these are the sorts of design thinking processes that we want to expose our students to. In our middle school, we have what we call exploratory options. Our middle school students have generally about a 6-week cycle through art and world languages. Currently in middle schools, we're offering Spanish and Chinese as languages. They have courses in technology, culinary arts, speech and communications. Again, think back to that conversation that we have with the business community. What do you want students coming out of our schools with? And we're hitting up our students in middle school with speech and communications. And those sort of things, creative communications. They'll do video recording, they'll do television production work in middle schools. So those sorts of things are programs that we have available to our students, all backed by technology and the tools that our students are able to gain access to. We have green screen recording options in most of our schools. So if you think about the newscast, how they've got the newscast in the background behind the news anchor that changes. We can do that in our schools. And we can teach the students how to do those sorts of things long before they would ever have to do that professionally. Our high school has no shortage of technical opportunities as well. The Medical Academy was developed about 4 or 5 years ago, and the students can actually focus their studies on the medical profession, whether it be a future in medicine, veterinary medicine, dentistry, whatever the case may be. They can start to get some of those core competencies set in place while they're still in high school. The other benefit, they could find out in high school that, hey, maybe this career path isn't for me. So they don't have to spend the 12 years in college to become a medical doctor. And if they find out in high school that, no, I thought I wanted to do that, but I was wrong, they can change course before they get too far into the path. A similar academy for engineering, we actually have a set of courses specifically set up for students who want to explore engineering as a background, whether it be architecture or civil engineering, those sorts of things. We have courses that are very specific to them that they can really dive into those topics and get a real deep learning in those areas before college. Two new academies that are actually starting up next fall are the Global Academy and Fine Arts Academy. The Global Academy really being a social studies driven academy for those students who are maybe more civic minded, that want to be more involved in their community, whether it be locally, statewide, nationwide, or internationally. And a Fine Arts Academy where you talk about art design, photography, performing arts, music, those sorts of things as well. We have gone so far to embed technology into these courses that we're able to individualize them much like we are at the other grade levels. So I'm going to show you a quick video. It's actually just about a 2-minute video about the Medical Academy. If you haven't heard, the Medical Academy is something where, as I mentioned, students can take up to 4 years of medical type courses before they ever get into college. The last year of that program, they actually have an opportunity, a subset of those students would have an opportunity to partner with Centegra Hospital to actually go to the hospital and do some rotational work there. And I'll show you a video a little bit about that.
This is a youth residency program through Huntley High School. It's a partnership with Centegra.
We split up into 3 different groups, and each quarter we rotate to the separate group, but within the group there's different occupations that we have the opportunity to shadow.
Some of them are more hands-on, some of them are more observational, and then they get to kind of put that together in the classroom with some of the science behind the technologies and things that they're seeing.
We have to do research every time we do a rotation. That just involves what the doctor does, how much education they need, what they do on a daily basis.
Most of our students have gone through several years of medical classes, and so this gives them the opportunity to explore the careers that they are potentially interested in.
I personally decided to do this program because I want to be an orthopedic surgeon in the future, and I thought it would be nice to see if this is a setting that I would actually want to work in.
I really got to know myself and other people from this. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and now I have an idea, so I really like this program. Most of the students here are aware that they want to go into the medical field. A lot of them don't really have direction, so this is giving me and my fellow classmates just a glimpse at what goes on in a hospital so that we can make a decision for our own futures.
I just like how I get to decide now, like if I want to enter the medical field or not, instead of later down the road while I'm 14 years into my education.
We believe that this is the only program of its kind, so I think it's very valuable that these kids are able to really have an opportunity. A lot of times students go into college and into careers really not knowing whether this is something that's a good fit for them or not, so it's a way for them to get a preview, you know, and to narrow down those choices.
This is going to make a big difference for me when I get into college versus the other kids, because I'll have the leg up on them and I'll know what it's like in the medical field. Basically, this is a medical school residency, but I get to experience it while I'm in high school.
So that's just a little bit about the Medical Academy. But the last student that mentioned there that this is really, it's like a medical school residency while he's still in high school. And to tell you how much it's like that, we've had hospitals and universities come to us to talk to us about this program. The University of Illinois down in Champaign, actually their medical school there in Springfield came to us and said, how are you offering this to your students? We can't offer this to our students until they're in graduate school. So you're talking 4 years of undergraduate work, then graduate school before the universities can offer this kind of a program to students. And we're doing it in high school. So that's why we think differently about the way we want to do things, because we want our students to head out into the world ahead of the curve, not on the curve, certainly not behind the curve. We want to be setting that standard and that bar for, I'm a student from Huntley High School, I'm proud of my background, I'm ready to face the world, and here's why, here's what I've done. So we're very proud of these sorts of programs. The next up and coming one, this is going to be a big one for us, I think. It's going to start small, just like blended learning did. But this is the ultimate in student flexibility in their schedule. And this is just high school students. We are starting a pilot program in the fall for 120 students at the high school, and it's called a competency-based learning pilot. There were only 10 districts across the entire state of Illinois that were chosen to participate in this pilot, and we were one of them. Basically, what happens in this program is students can self-guide their own learning through those core courses, the math, science, literacy, English language arts, and social studies. Those core courses in their education, they will be able to take half of their school day and focus entirely on the areas that they need help. There's a set of core teachers that are going to guide the process. And basically what happens is we set up what are called competencies. By the end of your freshman year in high school, these are the things that you should be able to know and accomplish in the areas of math and science, social studies, and literacy. And then you have the entire school year to meet those competencies, to become masters of those competencies. It's not, in August we're going to cover Unit 1, and Unit 1 is basic algebra. It's single variable equations. In Unit 2 is multivariable equations. That's not how it's going to work. We'll be able to basically assess the students on what their individual needs are to meet the end goal, rather than force them through the step-by-step process of 45 minutes per day for math classes and 47 minutes a day for science classes and those sorts of things. If a student needs 120 minutes in a day to focus on science because they're struggling in science, we should be able to give them 120 minutes in that day, because that's where they need the most help. If I struggle in language arts and I need more time focused there, I should get that time, because I don't need as much time in science and math. So I can take some of my science and math time, dedicated towards literacy and language arts, and end up at the end being better off. So that's the goal of this program. It's interesting, out of the 10 districts in the state of Illinois that were chosen, only 2 of us are using this program to propel students forward in their learning. The other 8 schools are approaching this as a way to bring their students who have been lagging behind back up to where they should be in terms of credit recovery. So we're very proud of the fact that we're able to leverage this program to advance our students beyond that curve, to raise that bar up just a little bit higher for our students, so that they do have extra time in their day to have electives like music and art and those other sorts of things. So we want to provide those opportunities as well. So that's kind of the next up and coming thing. I'm sure you'll see us in the news with that one. It's been in the local papers a couple different times. But as that program continues to develop, we're going to share our story, because we think it's the right way to help our students learn. And of course, we don't really know what's going to come after that. We're always thinking of new ways to have our students learn, to help our students progress through their education. We don't know what's going to come next, but what we hope to be able to do is plan for flexibility in our students. So as the world does change around them, they're able to grow and change with it. So think back to a month ago. I actually had the opportunity to come here to your meeting a month ago when Microsoft was here. And they were talking about keeping safe on the internet, recognizing internet scams and those sorts of things. Think about that for a minute. And now imagine that you're 18 years old and you're entering the college or the workforce. How do you approach things like internet safety and those scams on the internet when you're 18 and entering the workforce? You're off on your own. Think about when you're entering high school. You're 14 years old. First time in high school. High school is a big place. There's a lot of social media out there. Imagine how high school students are acting online these days. Is that something that we can all be proud of? Sometimes, sometimes not. Now imagine that you're Colton and you're in 3rd grade, almost 4th grade, and he's faced with these same things on the internet that the rest of us are. Or even more so, you're Ryder, you're 6, you're just learning to read, and you've got access to the internet, and you're reading those words on the internet. What's true, what's not true, what's legitimate, what's a scam, all that sort of stuff. Imagine that conversation with Microsoft a month ago, and you only have those small handfuls of years of experience as a 6-year-old to face what the internet's bringing you. That's why we think differently about what we do. The world's a big place. We just want you to be ready for it. We just want our students to leave school and have the confidence and the ability to adapt to the world around them, to be comfortable in a world where the internet is out there, and to do it correctly, to use the internet for their benefit, not so that it's a sidetrack for them or it causes problems for them in the future, to use social media responsibly. It can be a very valuable tool for connecting with other people, but you have to use it correctly. We want our students to really to take that problem by the horns and use it correctly, to leverage it for better, not for the negative. That's why we start technology at such a young age, and it's such a deep integration into our learning. That's why we do it. So we do our best to give the students the tools and resources they'll need to succeed. And the idea of always being exposed to innovation, if our students are used to that, when it comes to change future in their future lives, it'll be easier for them to adapt to that change. They'll be used to seeing things change. That's why we start at such a young age. So with that, I hope I haven't gone too long. I'll certainly entertain questions. We'll start back here. He had a quick hand back here.
I have two questions, one easy, one hard. Which one would you like first?
You pick.
All right. I'm a retired elementary teacher, and about 25 years ago when computers were first starting to come in, typing was one of the things that they were trying to teach kids, and so a couple of years it was required. Where does the district stand on typing? Is it something they usually pick up on their own now?
A lot of times, because if you think about students, I mean, Colton's sitting here with his iPad and he'll type away on that. A lot of times students are coming to us with, I'll say it this way, with rudimentary typing skills. They know where the letters are on the keyboard. They know how to hunt and peck very, very well. What they lack is proper keyboarding technique. It's that home row. It's the ASDF, JKL, semicolon, home row typing. I can sit in a classroom and I'll sit down at the desk with students and I'll start typing. Oh my gosh, Mr. Budzinski, how do you type so quickly? Well, it's a lot of practice and it's a lot of learning. And we do still have in our elementary levels times during the day where our students are actually learning the correct keyboarding process, the correct fingering and the correct use of the keyboard. It comes with time. It's not the dedicated amount of time that we used to have towards keyboarding, but we still do have our students exposed to it.
Okay, and the harder question was about 2 years ago, the district sent out to the public how we were doing here in the district statewide with the tests. And then, especially since you mentioned that competency plan, that program where there was only 10 high schools in there. When I read that, I tried to do a little bit of research and says, oh, good, how well are we doing? Because we're doing better than average or whatever. And I couldn't find any real solid data that we were all that good. In fact, you mentioned there was 8 schools one way and 2 the other. I remember Maywood, I think, was one of the 10, and they didn't have any. They said they couldn't test because you folks are allowed to opt out of the state requirements being in the pilot program. How well are we really doing if you've got some information, some statistics or whatever?
Sure. In terms of straight percentages, I don't have them with me. As a district, we do have. So if you look at student achievement as a whole in our district, we are well above the state average. That being said, I mean, it's a big state. Being above average, in my opinion, isn't good enough. We should be higher. I will say that we're a very high achieving district, but we could always do better. One of the things where we're able to see growth, and I think we'll see this over time. When we first started with our one-to-one program, at Martin Elementary, Martin is up kind of on the north side of town on Reed Road. When we started our one-to-one program at Martin, their reading scores came up, I want to say, by almost 10% in 1 year. So the issue with that is that was just about 5 years ago. Those students are still aging up through the system, but what we can see is that as they're aging through the system, they're doing better in their courses as a result of having higher achievement earlier on in the system. So what we'll see is we see upticks in those state tests, the ACT test, the SAT test now, which is the state mandated test. Our high school juniors just took the SAT test this week. So we won't actually see the scores for that until well into summer. But we have been seeing an uptick in those state standardized tests over the last couple of years. What's interesting though is when you look at that uptick in the percentage, it's very, very small. And if you think about why, part of it is because it's such a large high school. And we're at the point where if you're related back to ACT scores, if you're looking at a score of a 20, 21, 22 on an ACT score, to go up from there is very difficult because you're at and above that threshold for what's considered good. But at the same time, our approach to that is good isn't good enough. We want to be great. We want to do better. So we're always keeping an eye on that. We do have a lot of those statistics available to us. I don't happen to have them with me here today.
How is the district dropout rate compared to similar districts?
Our dropout rate is, I would say, lower than average. We have, the way the state of Illinois measures school completion is on a 4-year and a 5-year graduation rate cycle. Our 4-year graduation rate cycle is right on par. So those are the students who finish high school in 4 years. Our 5-year graduation rate is almost, I want to say it's a hair above 99% right now. So those are the students who get to their senior year, I missed a credit or two, I've got to recover those, they get them over the summer, they come back in the fall for those sorts of things. At a 5-year graduation rate, we hover right around 99%. So in terms of districts in our area, that's very common. If you look at the population in Huntley, that would be expected of our population to be at those sorts of numbers, for sure.
How does this impact children with learning disabilities?
Great question. We have in Huntley our students with special needs, IEP students, we're around 13%, which is actually very close to the educational average for special needs students. We have students in our district that have technology that help them communicate. We have completely nonverbal students who, via an iPad and a speaker system that they have, they're actually able to communicate fully and openly now. We're able to leverage a lot of the technology from that extreme all the way down to like I mentioned, my own son Ryder, who was part of a reading intervention, just to help with the confidence of reading. So we literally will look at every student individually and say, what are your needs? How can we make the educational system and specifically technology work for you individually? And we'll build custom systems for students that meet those very, very specific needs. And we have a couple students with vision problems, and they have special computers to allow them to access the same content that everybody else would access through magnification, through screen reading. We're actually doing some studies right now with overlays on screens, with digital overlays that will actually tint a computer screen to be a certain color if students have color blindness issues, those sorts of things. We're doing some work with specialized fonts on computers to help with dyslexia. There's research that shows that the certain fonts of typeface will actually help students with the continuation of their words a little bit better. So we're trying those sorts of things. And we're seeing what it does for our students. If it works, great, we'll do more. If it doesn't, we'll back away and we'll find other solutions. And that's one of the nice things about technology is we can make it move and flow to our needs too. Good question.
I have one here. Sure. That's a multi-part. So I have several grandchildren, okay? And we've noticed, my wife and I, we noticed that none of them know cursive. None of them with one exception, the oldest one could sign her name. Because the parents went to the school and say, hey, let's just get how to sign her name. I realize in the future maybe it's going to be eyeball technology or something, I don't know, but it seems to me that that should be the standard requirement. Secondly, the one granddaughter was supposed to mail, USPS, mail something to the mail. She had no idea how to address an envelope. She knew where the stamp went, and that was it.
Yeah.
The third one is checkbook, simple finance. Again, she was in high school, and parents decided, you know, she had a part-time job and yada yada. So she had no idea how to take care of checkbook. She knew she had a credit card with a limit on it, thank God. But so I'm saying is I understand these things are all forward-looking. They are great, and we need them in this country. But I also think we need the more day-to-day rudimentary type skills, because all the parents aren't going to be doing the teaching that I think is required for the day-to-day living.
Absolutely. One of the interesting things, I'll start with cursive on this one. We still teach cursive. And we never took it out of our curriculum. You'll hear in the news that the state of Illinois mandates the teaching of cursive in class. We never took it out. It's there. Colton, you learn cursive, right? Yes. That's third grade, and we're learning cursive now.
Can you sign his name?
He can certainly sign his name. They're in the process of learning others as well. I think they start with their name because they write it so often, but for sure. And I absolutely agree with you in terms of those day-to-day tasks and those skills, the U.S. mail, those sorts of things. In our high school, we do have required courses for personal finance and those sorts of things where they do cover that. Personally, I wish they covered it earlier. When I was a kid, I delivered newspapers. I had a checkbook. I want to say I was in 5th grade because I had to buy the newspapers from the paper company, and then I had to turn around and sell them. So I had my own checkbook in 5th grade. So I agree with you. I absolutely think that those are things that our students should be learning at a younger age. My kids actually have checking accounts of their own. They don't have checkbooks, they actually have debit cards, which speaks to exactly what you're saying. Is we're moving some things forward too quickly, but that's the option that we had available to us as a family.
I have 2 questions. When I went to school many years ago, we had traditional, quarterlies and finals, and do they still have that in school today? And the second question is there a Common Core influence in any of this as well for the learning?
Sure, I'll answer those separately and see how they combine in the end. The quick answer to do we have finals and midterms? Yeah, we absolutely still do. Some of those midterms are changing a little bit in what they look like. A lot of them, you would recognize them. I would recognize them from when I was in school. A lot of that hasn't changed much. But what does change is some of those finals have become more project-based. So when I think back to my high school years and the finals that I had, it was multiple choice, short answer, essay, maybe some true false if we were lucky, that sort of stuff. Those projects have now turned into show me that you've learned the stuff by creating something and by building a project around what you've learned. So, I mean, yeah, those still certainly exist, but they're changing a little bit to really show mastery of the concepts. And the idea of Common Core, kind of has an overarching umbrella over everything that we think about in terms of education. The state of Illinois adopted Common Core standards as kind of the standard way of looking at education. So as a school district, we look at what does it mean to be Common Core? Because a lot of times you'll see Common Core stamped on a textbook, and that means it's Common Core compliant. But what we do is we actually pick apart those standards that Common Core is made up of, and that's how we build our curriculum. And we say the goal of Common Core was to set those standards by which students learn. It goes back to at the end of 3rd grade, here's the things that students should be able to do. We've picked those apart for each subject area, and that's how we build our course curriculum and our progression through the learning. So to say Common Core has an impact on our education, it absolutely does. But what we've done as a district is kind of picked it apart for the value of Common Core and the idea that it's a standards-based learning towards the goal of being masters of the content.
Dr. Mahoney.
There's one word that prevails through the entire presentation, and that's computer.
Mhm.
Can you share a few things as far as the student's computer?
Sure.
Is it a Chromebook? Do they take it home with them? Is it just relegated to stay in school, et cetera? Thank you.
It is a Chromebook, and they do take it home with them, all grade levels. Kindergarten students take them home, high school seniors take them home, every day during the school year. We actually send them home over the summer as well. A lot of school districts don't send them home at all during the school year or over the summer. We do. We actually take extra time and effort approaching the end of our school year, and our curriculum department will actually put together summer programming for all of our students so that we're trying to address some of that summer regression. It's amazing to see what students can forget during those warmer months. So we're trying to minimize that, and we'll create reading programs and reading lists and all that sort of stuff for our students so they can work through that over the summer. We've had great success with sending our devices home for the summer. I have schools come to me all the time and say, well, it seems crazy that you would send them home over the summer. How many Chromebooks did you lose? Well, to be honest with you, we don't lose any. Or if we do, out of 10,000 devices that we send home, we'll lose 1 or 2. Our population here in Huntley, they're not moving out over the summer. In fact, we have more people move in over the summer than we have move out. Generally speaking, anytime a student does leave the district, they come see us, they bring the Chromebook back to us, and we have it available to us then. We can actually make it not work. If they happen to wander off with one, go to their next school, we can actually make the Chromebook not work. Then they have the incentive to bring it back to us. So we can do those things too. It works out really well for us, and frankly, I think our parents appreciate that students have access to learning continuing on nights and weekends and over the summer as well. We got one over here.
I wanted to share with everybody a great tour that we and our neighbors went on about a year ago of Huntley High School, where many of the things that he's talking about here were demonstrated, and students actually appeared in front of us and we could talk with them to verify that this is a wonderful program. They even had a section on how our taxes are used, how much taxes are used. And I gotta tell you, as a Sun City resident, we're really proud to support this kind of hard work. And the students that they graduate are the people that we deal with, the stores, etc. So we're just really grateful that they do such a great job. And I want to encourage everybody who has a chance to go on that tour again this year as you offer it. It's just fantastic. We've learned so much, and like I say, we actually got to talk with the children themselves.
Yeah, that's one of the really cool things. I could stand up here and talk about these programs. I mean, I could talk for hours about this stuff. But if you have a chance to get in front of our students and to ask them what they think, they'll tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly about these programs. There's things that they like, there's things that they don't like, there's things that they have to adjust to. And they'll be very open and honest about those programs. So I encourage you, if you have an opportunity to go on one of these visits to our schools, it's absolutely worth the time and the trip. Frankly, I work there and I still learn new things every time.
Do you have trouble bringing your teachers up to speed on the technology?
Sometimes. Sometimes. What's interesting is you would think that in a school district of our size, we have about 600, 650 teachers. That's a lot. Our average tenure for teachers is significantly less than most districts in our area, which is the professional way of saying our teachers are on average younger than those teachers in districts around us. And you would think that being the case, that our teachers would be more in tune with technology and those sorts of things. Where we struggle is we find in a lot of times in teacher preparation programs, those undergraduate teacher programs, they aren't being exposed to this level of integration of technology in schools. So when we have student teachers coming to us to shadow in our classrooms, they're coming in and they're saying, wow, we didn't know this was happening in the real world of education. We've talked about this as a concept, but we didn't know it was actually happening. So there's a lot of times where our newest teachers are coming to us with a basic level of technology integration like this in their classrooms. And then we have a whole subset of that kind of middle core of our teacher group that if we say, hey, we're gonna do something new with technology, they've seen the benefits and they are fast to get on board, fast to try new things. They learn quickly, they fail quickly sometimes, they learn from those mistakes and move on. And then of course, there's always teachers who wanna continue to do things the way they've always done them. And to a certain extent, that's okay too, as long as there's reason to believe that still works. I mean, we have some high school statistics teachers that have been teaching for longer than I've been around, and they do a great job, and you can't argue with their success because you look at the students when they enter college, whether it be through AP exams, their success rates are higher than anybody around. And they're teaching statistics the same way they've taught statistics for decades. So it works. So we're not gonna force people to change, but we'll show them opportunities where they could.
Is the average experience level still 8 years or 50%?
Yeah, right now we're hovering right around 8 years. For us, we're right around 8 years. In most districts around us, they're closer to 10 or 11. Other questions? Okay. Oh, we might have one more. One more?
Well, are there safeguards on their computers against the that stuff like that?
So are you asking about filters on computers and stuff like that? Absolutely. We are actually required by federal law to filter our student devices. We have, in fact, we have 2 different filters that are constantly working to help keep students safe on the internet. What I will say with that is no filter is perfect. There's always stuff out there. If you look hard enough, you can find bad things on the internet. But what we do is all of our devices are filtered at school. They're also filtered exactly the same when they go home. Because we don't want our students to be faced with something different when they go home that they're not prepared for by being in school. So we filter them exactly the same. We don't care where they're at. We don't care how they connect to the internet. They are filtered the same with those same 2 filters anywhere they go.
Thank you very much, Chris. Most enlightening, and now I'll ask you, for those of you that were wanting to volunteer to help with coffee and or donuts, see Jim. And we'd like to also remind you, if you have any laptop computers that need to be recycled, please bring them into the lab.
You said there, I don't know, how ago you said there were some problems.
Sue might be here.
No, she didn't come today. Usually does. Well, she started to see how late I was going to play first.
Such a great